Welcome to Themask. Today, we unmask Law 4. Always say less than necessary.
It's such a good one.
Mhm.
And it feels so, I don't know, so counterintuitive in the world we live in now, doesn't it?
Oh, completely. We're all about, constant communication, sharing everything.
Hmm.
But this law is one of the most potent and, to be honest, one of the most dangerous in the entire book.
It really is.
And we are going to start with a pretty stark reality check. I want everyone listening to just picture this for a second. The moment you open your mouth, you are actually putting your power at risk.
That's it right there.
We all grow up thinking that speaking proves how smart we are, right? You explain yourself, you lay out your case, and people will understand you or respect
I
you.
like you.
Yeah,
We talk to connect.
exactly. But Robert Greene argues the complete opposite. He says that the more you say, the bluff, the higher the chance you will say something foolish.
Something you can take back.
You can't. He describes words as being like bullets. Once they are fired, that's it. They're out there. You can't just pull them back.
That's a terrifying metaphor, but
Right.
it's so accurate. And if you look at the psychology of it, silence is just deeply uncomfortable for us as human beings.
Oh, it's agonizing.
It creates a vacuum. We're social creatures, We're hardwired to connect, to fill that void. But the very moment you rush in to fill that vacuum with words, you're essentially handing over your power on a silver platter.
You're just giving it away.
You're broadcasting your intentions, your insecurities, your weaknesses, all of it. You're giving your opponent a roadmap to your mind.
It's the peril of the open mouth.
Yeah.
And so today, our mission is to really explore what we're calling the Zen minimalist approach to power. We are going to try and unmask the aura of the Sphinx.
The Sphinx is the perfect image for this law. I mean, think about it. It's immovable. It's unreadable. It just sits there.
And we have a huge roadmap for this deep dive. We're going to dissect the history of the Sun King, Louis XIV, and how he basically terrified his entire court with just 3 little words.
It's an incredible story.
And then we're going to look at the other side of the coin. The tragic, it's basically a suicide by speech of the Roman hero Coriolanus. That story, it honestly hurts to listen to because you can just see it was so avoidable.
Oh, it's painful. You just want to scream at him to stop talking.
We'll even touch on how Henry Kissinger used silence to absolutely break his own subordinates.
And we won't just stay in the past, right? We have to bring this into today. We're going to move from those, historical court intrigues.
All the way to the modern boardroom.
Exactly. Into social media feeds, which, my God, what a trap that is for this law.
A minefield.
And even dating strategies.
And then we'll wrap it all up with a really practical 3-step playbook to apply this mask immediately, like this week. So let's get into it. Section 1, the law distilled. Always say less than necessary. What are the actual mechanics of power going on here?
Okay, so at its absolute core, power is about control. I think we can agree on that. And you simply cannot control something you've already released into the world.
Like the bullets.
Like the bullets. When you speak, you reveal yourself. You become, defined. You're concrete. People can get a handle on you. But when you are silent, you become a blank screen.
A blank screen. I like that.
And this is the critical part. On that blank screen, other people, they start projecting their own fears, their own thoughts, their own interpretations onto you. You're not defining yourself. You're letting them do it.
And that ties right back to that idea of the Sphinx we mentioned earlier. The Sphinx doesn't explain itself, right? It sits there in the desert, massive and silent, and it poses riddles.
Exactly. And we as humans are machines of interpretation. It's what we do.
Yeah.
We are desperate to know what other people are thinking. It's a survival mechanism, really.
Sure. Is this person a threat? Do they like me?
All of it. So when someone is silent or vague, our imagination just goes into overdrive. We start imagining they're incredibly profound or maybe dangerous or that they're thinking something brilliant.
When really they could just be thinking about what they're having for lunch.
Precisely. But their silence gives them this weight, this gravity that they wouldn't have if they just said, I'm thinking about a sandwich.
It's that whole Wizard of Oz effect, isn't it? Until you pull back the curtain, the giant floating head is terrifying and all-powerful.
That's a perfect analogy.
Right.
But Greene makes another specific point about commonness. He says, the more you say, the more common you appear. Let's dig into that a little.
Yeah, that's a tough pill to swallow for a lot of people.
It is, because it feels elitist. But what he means is that familiarity breeds contempt. If you're constantly chattering, sharing every thought, every opinion, every feeling, you become predictable.
And in the game of power, being predictable is basically death.
It is. Powerful people who talk too much eventually. Well, they reveal that they're just people, with the same petty concerns and boring thoughts as everyone else. They strip away their own myth.
So if you act like a regular person, you get treated like a regular person. You lose the aura.
You lose the aura. Precisely. Think about the most charismatic leaders, or, even celebrities. The ones with real staying power usually have a layer of separation, a bit of mystery. But the ones who are on social media every 5 minutes, fighting in the comments, over-explaining their actions.
They just become noise. They lose their luster. They become common.
Exactly. And the flip side of that is that even banal remarks, boring everyday observations, can seem original or profound if you just deliver them vaguely and then shut up.
You force the other person to fill in the blanks, and they'll probably fill them with something more interesting than what you were actually thinking.
You make them do the work. They have to interpret you. And in that process, they will almost always interpret you as being more powerful or intelligent than you actually are, because they assume you know something that they don't.
Okay, so let's move this from the theoretical into the real world, or I guess the historical world, to see how this plays out when the stakes are literally life and death. We have to start with the transgression of this law. The tragedy of Coriolanus.
This is such a classic example. We're in ancient Rome, around the 5th century BC.
Right.
And we're talking about a man named Gnaeus Marcius, but everyone knows him as Coriolanus.
And this guy he was a legend in his own time, a military hero. He'd spent 17 years on the battlefield. He was the definition of a Roman hero.
He was the real deal. And because he spent all his time fighting, nobody really knew him personally. He was more of a myth than a man, a legendary figure protecting Rome from its enemies, the sword of Rome.
So he gets this idea. He decides to run for consul, which is a very high political office. And at first, he does exactly the right thing, almost by accident.
Right. He doesn't go out and give these big, flowery speeches. He goes to the forum and he shows the people his scars.
All the wounds he'd taken in battle.
Exactly. It's a form of visual, silent communication. And it was incredibly powerful. The people were moved to tears. They saw the physical proof of his service, and they projected heroism onto him. They saw a protector.
They built the myth in their own minds. He didn't have to say a word. But then he started talking.
The fatal error. The moment it all starts to unravel.
He enters the forum, but this time he's escorted by the aristocracy, the patricians. And he loses it. He makes this incredibly arrogant speech.
He starts boasting about his exploits, effectively saying, I saved all of you, so you owe me this.
And he made these sour jokes. That's a key detail from the story. Jokes that only the rich aristocrats around him found funny, but that were deeply insulting to the common people.
Which is just, what was he thinking? The people realized in that moment that this hero, this myth, he was actually just a braggart. He looked down on them.
And he loses the election. The people turn on him.
Of course they did. He shattered his own image with his own words.
Okay, but I want to play devil's advocate here for a second. We're talking about Coriolanus. This wasn't some smooth-talking politician in a suit. This was a war hero. He had the scars to prove it. He literally saved Rome. Doesn't he have the right to brag a little? If I saved an entire city, I'd probably want to mention it in my campaign speech.
You would think so, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
In our modern culture, we sort of value that authenticity. We want people to tell it like it is. But the Romans saw it differently. And frankly, the timeless dynamics of power see it differently.
So it wasn't just that he bragged, it was how he did it.
It's exactly how he did it. He didn't frame his service as a gift to the state. He framed it as a debt that the state now owed him. It was transactional.
Ah, I see that distinction. It's the difference between I served you and you owe me. One is noble, the other is arrogant.
Precisely. And accompanying that arrogance with those sour jokes, can we just imagine what that was like?
What does that even mean in 5th century BC? Was he doing bad stand-up comedy?
Basically, yes.
Yeah.
Imagine a billionaire running for office today who goes to a factory and starts making jokes about how cheap the workers' clothes look. The other billionaires, his friends, might laugh. They think it was witty. But the workers...
The workers would realize this guy doesn't respect us. He despises us.
Exactly. They'd see his true character. And that's what happened. If Coriolanus had just stood there, maybe shirtless, showing the scars, and kept his mouth shut.
The people would have kept projecting their own version of a hero onto him. They would have seen a stoic protector, a man of action, not words.
But by speaking, he ripped the mask off himself and showed them the arrogance underneath. He couldn't help himself.
And this is the part that just kills me. He doesn't stop there. He loses the election because of his big mouth. He goes back to the battlefield all bitter. But then a shipment of grain arrives in Rome during a famine. The Senate wants to distribute it to the poor.
And Coriolanus comes back and argues against feeding the hungry.
It's unbelievable.
He didn't just argue against the grain. He went on to insult the very concept of democracy. He said the people's representatives, the tribunes, should be removed from power. He was so fueled by his own anger, his need to say what was on his mind, that he essentially signed his own death warrant.
Literally. The people rioted. They demanded his execution. He was condemned to be thrown off the Tarpeian Rock.
Which was a particularly nasty way to go. Eventually he was commuted to lifelong banishment, but the damage was done. The hero was gone. His mouth completely destroyed what his sword had spent 17 years building.
The legend just evaporated the moment he opened his mouth. It's such a tragedy because if he had just shut up, he would have been consul. He would have had all the power he wanted.
And that's the ultimate irony, isn't it? He wanted power, but his uncontrollable need to speak stripped him of it. Green's point is that a person who cannot control his words shows that he cannot control himself. And if you can't control yourself, why should anyone respect you or follow you?
Okay, so Coriolanus is banished. The legend is dead. A true suicide by speech. But that leaves us with a pretty big question.
Which is?
If speaking can destroy your power, how do you actually govern? How do you run a country or a company if you're terrified of saying the wrong thing? You can't just be a mute statue, right? You have to give orders, you have to interact.
That is the central puzzle. And to solve it, we have to jump forward in time. About 2,000 years, actually. We're leaving the dusty streets of Rome and heading for the absolute pinnacle of pomp and circumstance.
We're going to the court of the Sun King, Louis XIV.
Exactly. Because while Coriolanus was a warrior who failed at politics, Louis was a man who turned silence into a political superweapon.
Let's just set the scene at Versailles. And I don't mean the tourist version we see today. I mean the snake pit of the 17th century.
A gilded cage.
Totally. You have hundreds of the most powerful nobles in France, all crammed into this one palace, literally tripping over each other, spying on each other, constantly jockeying for position.
And the currency in that palace wasn't gold. It was the king's attention. A glance, a smile, a single word from him could make or break your entire career. Access was everything.
So, picture the psychological state of a courtier. Let's say she has a request. Maybe he wants a title for his son or a monopoly on some trade route. He spent months plotting this.
He's bribed the king's valet to find out what mood Louis is in that morning. He's rehearsed his little speech in front of a mirror 1,000 times. The stress is just off the charts.
It's like the highest stakes poker game imaginable, but you're not allowed to see the other guy's cards. Ever.
Exactly. So the moment finally arrives. The great doors swing open. He walks down that long, intimidating hall of mirrors. He approaches Louis XIV. And this is crucial. Louis isn't distracted. He's not looking at paperwork. He is staring right at you with this terrifying blank intensity.
And the courtier starts talking. He's pitching his heart out. He's desperately looking for some kind of micro-expression, a raised eyebrow, a slight nod, anything to tell him, am I winning or losing here?
And that's where the trap springs. Because Louis gives them absolutely nothing.
Zero.
He was the master of the stone face long before poker was even a thing. And as the courtier keeps talking, the silence starts to stretch out. And what happens when you're talking to a stone wall?
You start to panic. You ramble. You second-guess yourself. Oh no, maybe I didn't explain the tax benefits clearly enough. So you add another sentence, then another. You start bargaining against yourself out loud.
You're filling the vacuum he has created. You are vomiting information. You're revealing your entire hand, your insecurities, your backup plans. And Louis just sits there and absorbs it all.
And then when you are completely drained, sweating through your silk stockings, Louis delivers the kill shot. He doesn't say no. He doesn't say yes. He says, je verrai.
I shall see.
It's devastating.
Think about the pure power dynamics of that specific phrase. It's future tense. It implies that the decision belongs solely to him, and it will happen on his timeline, not yours. It just leaves the courtier hanging in this state of suspended animation for weeks, sometimes months.
And he never discusses the issue with them again, right?
That's the key part.
Never. They only see the result weeks later when some decree is issued or an action is taken. They are left to wonder and worry. There's this incredible quote from the Duc de Saint-Simon, who was a courtier there at the time. He wrote, "No one knew as well as he how to sell his words, his smile, even his glances."
That phrase, sell his words, is just brilliant. Louis understood that scarcity creates value. Because he spoke so rarely and so cryptically, every single word he did say was treated like a diamond.
People would analyze a single sentence for weeks. He said, "I shall see." But he was looking towards the window. What could the window mean? Is it about foreign trade?
It's almost comical, but it was deadly serious,
Mm.
and it protected him. Because if you don't know the king's actual position on an issue, you can't flatter him effectively.
Oh, that's a great point.
Usually courtiers try to figure out what the boss wants and then just tell him that. But if the boss is a blank wall, the courtier is forced to reveal their own true position. They end up showing their cards while the king keeps his face down.
He creates this center of gravity where everything revolves around him simply because he is the central mystery.
It creates fear. Not the fear of being executed necessarily, but the fear of the unknown. And that is a much more potent long-term form of power.
There is such a good modern parallel to this. It's the story of Henry Kissinger and his aide, Winston Lord.
The modern Sphinx, a perfect example of this law in a modern bureaucracy.
So the story is that Winston Lord writes this massive detailed report on foreign policy. He's worked on it for days, maybe weeks. He's proud of it. He hands it to Kissinger.
Okay.
Kissinger keeps it for a few days, then just hands it back. There's a note clipped to it that says, "Is this the best you can do?"
Oof. That is brutal. No feedback, no red ink, just that one question.
So Lord is horrified. He thinks, "Oh my God, I must have missed something huge." He goes back, he rewrites it from the ground up, polishes every sentence, adds more data, he resubmits it.
And what happens?
A few days later, Kissinger hands it back again. Same note. "Is this the best you can do?"
The psychological pressure of that must have been immense. He's not saying what's wrong with it, he's just withholding his approval. He's forcing Lord to become his own harshest critic.
Exactly. So Lord goes back a third time. He stays up all night. He refines every single word. He finally marches into Kissinger's office, slams the report on the desk, and snaps. He says, "Damn it. Yes, it's the best I can do."
And the punchline.
Kissinger looks up at him calmly and says, "Fine, then I guess I'll read it this time."
That is hilarious. But it's also a masterclass in Law 4, isn't it? Kissinger used silence and a vague, unanswerable question to force his subordinate to do the absolute maximum amount of work possible.
He didn't waste his own time critiquing a draft that wasn't perfect. He let the silence do the managing for him.
It's efficient, I'll give him that. But let's dig a little deeper into the analysis here. Why does this kind of thing work so well on the human brain? You mentioned something earlier, a connection to Law 44, the mirror effect. Can we unpack that?
Yeah, because when I hear mirroring, I think of, old school sales tactics, copying the other person's body language to build rapport.
Right, that's physical mirroring. This is psychological mirroring. Think about a good therapy session. Often, the therapist says very, very little. You talk, you pause, and they just look at you.
And it's incredibly awkward. You feel compelled to say more.
It is, and in that awkwardness, you start to see yourself more clearly. The therapist's silence acts as a mirror. You hear the echo of your own words, and suddenly they might sound hollow or foolish, or you realize you're lying to yourself.
So when you say silent in a negotiation, you're basically holding up a mirror and forcing the other person to stare at their own anxiety.
100%. When you don't jump in to validate them, they feel this intense need to validate themselves, and usually they do a terrible job of it. They start bidding against themselves just to fix the uncomfortable reflection they see in your silence.
They start over-explaining, revealing information they never intended to.
Exactly. And speaking of playbooks for control, this is a good time to mention the whole prison ban context.
Yes, this is fascinating. The 48 Laws of Power is actually a banned book in many U.S. prison systems. We're talking Michigan, Ohio, New York.
In New York, I think they classify it alongside books on martial arts and how to make escape maps.
They consider it a security threat.
Which, if you think about it, is the ultimate endorsement of the book's effectiveness, isn't it?
It really is. I mean, why is it a threat?
Because prisons are these raw, concentrated environments of power dynamics. And the authorities absolutely do not want inmates learning how to consciously manipulate those dynamics. If an inmate understands Law 4, if they learn to control their tongue, to be the sphinx on the cell block, they can completely unsettle the social hierarchy.
They can unsettle the guards.
For sure. It gives them a playbook for mental control in a place where they have absolutely no physical freedom. If you can control your reaction, you can control the interaction.
But I want to pivot here, because I think there's a real danger in taking this too literally. We have to ask the question, is silence always the right move?
No.
Because I can imagine plenty of situations where sitting there like a stone statue just makes you look weird or disengaged or even incompetent.
And that is the crucial nuance. Thank you for bringing that up. You cannot be the Sphinx 24/7. There is actual research on this, specifically by McLaren and others, that shows in early group socialization, like when a new team is first forming, The talkers often gain status.
That's the babble hypothesis, right? The person who talks the most is perceived as the leader, even if what they're saying isn't the smartest thing in the room.
Correct. So if you're too silent in a new group, you might be perceived as aloof, or worse, not contributing. And
True.
there's another danger. If you were too silent all the time, you arouse suspicion.
People start to think you're plotting something. You become the creepy guy in the corner who never says anything.
Right. So what's the reversal? How do you find the balance? The reversal is that sometimes to practice Law 4 effectively, you actually have to talk.
Okay, that sounds like a contradiction.
It seems like it, but it's not. You talk about nothing of consequence. You use words as a smokescreen, which connects to Law 3, conceal your intentions. You chatter about the weather or sports or something totally banal so that people think they know you.
You give them a caption for your image, but it's a fake caption. It's camouflage.
Exactly. You seem open, you seem friendly and harmless, but you haven't actually revealed anything of substance. You're hiding in plain sight behind a wall of meaningless words.
That is sneaky. I like it. Okay, let's take all of this and make it super practical. We have 3 modern scenarios where our listeners can apply this mask.
Let's start with the one that gives everyone anxiety, the boardroom, or, any kind of negotiation.
Oh, yes, the salary negotiation, the contract discussion. Let's role play the bad version first, the way most people do it.
Okay, so you're in the meeting. You finally work up the courage to name your price. I'm looking for a salary of $100,000.
Yeah.
And then there's a pause. The boss doesn't say anything immediately. They just look at their notes.
And the panic kicks in. That silence feels like an accusation. You think, oh no, they hate it. I asked for too much. So you jump in and say, I know it's a bit high, but I'm very flexible. And of course, that number includes the potential bonus structure, and we can discuss.
And you've just lost $10,000, maybe more. You just negotiated against yourself because you couldn't stand the silence.
You showed them you didn't even believe in your own price. So what's the mask application here?
It's so simple, but so hard to do. State your price, then stop. Put a period at the end of the sentence and physically close your mouth.
Be the Sphinx at the head of the conference table.
Short answers and silence make other people feel defensive. If you state your case and then wait, the other person feels the pressure to fill that silence. They might reveal that their budget was actually higher all along, or they might just say, okay, because the tension is too uncomfortable for them.
It's about being comfortable with the awkwardness.
Comfort with awkwardness is a genuine superpower. In any negotiation, the person who can sit in silence longer wins.
Okay, scenario 2, social media. This is the absolute homeland of the overshare.
Oh my goodness. This is where Law 4 is violated every single second of every single day. People feel this intense compulsion to post their breakfast, their random thoughts, their location, their emotional meltdowns.
It's the total opposite of mystery. It's radical transparency. It's reality TV, but you're not getting paid for it.
And it makes you common. It just does. If I can see everything you do and think, why should I be interested in you? There is no aura. You're just readily available inventory.
So the application here is what we call Zen minimalist posting.
Precisely. Look at someone like 50 Cent, who actually collaborated with Robert Greene on the 50th Law. He understands that scarcity creates value. If you are everywhere, you are nowhere.
So don't post every thought. Post rarely. Maybe post an interesting image with no caption at all.
Or a very cryptic caption. Make people wonder, where is he? What does that mean? It forces them to engage their imagination.
It makes them stop scrolling. If you post 10 times a day, people just scroll past the noise. If you post once a month, I guarantee people will stop and look at it.
You become an event, not just content. You are curating an image, not vomiting data. You're making your audience come to you to find out what's happening instead of pushing it into their faces all the time.
Okay, scenario 3, relationships. Let's talk about the first date.
This is where the Coriolanus error happens constantly. You want to impress the other person, so you start listing your achievements. I have this job, I have this car, I went to this great school, I ran a marathon.
You're showing your scars, but you're bragging about them. You think you're building value, but you're actually just sucking all the air out of the room.
And you're probably boring them to death. More importantly, you leave no room for their imagination to work.
So the application is to be the listener, the Andy Warhol-esque listener.
Andy Warhol was a master of this in interviews. He would just give these short, vague answers like, gee, that's great, and then turn the question back on them. He'd let the other person talk for hours.
Vague, encouraging, but ultimately mysterious.
When you let the other person do most of the talking, 2 things happen. 1, they feel great. They walk away thinking you are a brilliant conversationalist even though you barely said anything.
And 2,
2, they're projecting their fantasy onto you because you haven't said enough about yourself to contradict whatever perfect image they are starting to build in their mind.
the more you say, the less room there is for their imagination. That is a really powerful dating tip. Mystery is the heart of seduction.
It truly is.
Wow.
We fall in love with what we don't fully understand. If you explain everything about yourself on date 1, there's no mystery left to uncover. There's no reason for a date 2.
Okay, so we've got the history, the theory, the modern scenarios. This is all great, but how do we actually start doing this? Let's get to the 3-step playbook for this week.
Step 1 is a simple physical discipline. We're calling it the 3-second pause.
Okay, how does that work?
In every single conversation you have this week, before you answer any question, even a simple one like, how was your weekend? I want you to count to 3 in your head. 1, 2, 3. Then speak.
That feels like an eternity. I feel like people are going to think my connection's lagging or something.
It feels like an eternity to you because your brain is racing 1,000,000 miles an hour. To the other person, it looks like you are thoughtful. It looks like you're considering your words carefully. It makes you seem more deliberate and authoritative.
And it gives you a moment to decide if you even need to answer or how you want to answer. It kills that knee-jerk reaction. I like that. What's step 2?
Step 2 is the I shall see mantra. You need to adopt a go-to non-committal phrase for when people make requests of you.
Basically, stop saying yes immediately just to please people.
Exactly. We are so programmed to be agreeable. Someone asks, hey, can you help me with this project? We say, sure. And then 5 minutes later, we regret it. Replace that impulse with something like, let me check my schedule and get back to you. Or I'll consider it. Or if you're feeling bold, Louis XIV is, I shall see.
It buys you the power of time. You can always say yes later, but it's really hard to unsay an immediate yes.
Correct. And step 3 is about your digital life. We call it edit your captions.
This is one you can do right now.
For sure. Go look at the last 3 emails or text messages you sent. I will almost guarantee you they're twice as long as they need to be. We pad them with all this fluff.
Just checking in. Sorry to bother you. I was just thinking that maybe.
The modifiers of insecurity. Cut them. Cut the email in half. State the fact. Ask the question. And the message. Concise equals confident.
It can feel scary to hit send on a really short email, though. It feels kind of rude.
It feels rude to you because you're worried about how you're being perceived. To the busy recipient, it feels like you respect their time. And it makes you seem busy and important, like you don't have time for fluff.
Okay, so to sum this all up, silence isn't just about not talking. It's about conserving your energy. It's about creating a kind of gravity around you.
Power is not about being the loudest person in the room. It is about being the center of gravity. Louis XIV knew it. Coriolanus tragically forgot it.
Keep your cards close to your chest. Be the Sphinx.
And remember, once the words are out there, you are their servant. But as long as you keep them in, they are your servants.
This channel funds our AI startup, Einstein IELTS. If you want to support us, subscribe to the Mask channel.
And we will see you for the next law.
I just want to leave you with this one final thought to chew on. If you are talking, you are teaching. If you are listening, you are learning. So who really holds the power? The teacher who gives their knowledge away, or the student who quietly takes it all in? Think about that.
I shall see.
See you next time.